want to be in the, see, when we get to the red,
right?
We get really excited.
Right.
It's okay if it peaks up there.
But then don't keep it there.
Right. We just don't, we kind of want to be here, right?
This is like training.
Yeah. It's like, good. Okay. And I still worry about your mic. Okay. I think we're good. I'll cut all this, of course.
Sure.
Well, President, today we have with us here on the Project Phoenix Rising, our Unity President, Brenda Hanus.
Hi, Thomas.
How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you for joining me. And before we continue, I'll just honor the land that we're on, if that's okay with you.
That'd be super.
Okay, great. So we are grateful to be working and playing and present here on the Snuneymuxw territory, the unceded and traditional lands of the Snuneymuxw people, and for all of their thousands of years of managing this land and caring for it and now sharing it with us. We are truly grateful. And for that, we say Haisepka, I believe.
Haisepka.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think, yes, Patricia has
prompted us.
Yes, I think that's it.
Educated us.
Hopefully I have that correct.
Yes.
But thank you for joining me.
And isn't this nice? That's a normalcy now to do our land acknowledgement. Like, it's everywhere, and I'm so appreciative that that's just being kind of the way we fly now.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's
it's taken us a while though.
It has. And it still, for me, it takes, sometimes I have to remember because it's not ingrained yet. And then, as I've shared this before, I really love that Sumquatton brought in the idea of our ancestors being with us wherever we go.
Yeah,
and that's
it's beautiful.
That's still working on being in some capacity. Because I'm not sure how I feel about it, right? Like, I don't have that bond that I think their tradition has.
Yeah.
It's not ingrained in my upbringing, right? That ancestry is super important. So I actually have to reflect on it and go, wow, what does that mean for me? And I don't even really know my grandparents. Like, they were long gone before, I was of age to really know them. So anyhow, it just plays on me a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's not why you're here.
No.
You're here because I thought it was really time to grill the president of Unity Vancouver Island.
Yeah, and what took you so long? Yeah.
No, I thought it would be great to speak with you because here's what, for example, we had a call last night, the What's Up Unity call, and there are people on there that have been involved with Unity for a very long time. And I just hear things every once in a while that I had no idea that that's how it was, right? Like, there's just a history here that I'm not really aware of fully. I get little tidbits, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that don't know the history of Unity of Vancouver Island. And I know you have a long-standing history with Unity of Vancouver Island, and I thought we would start there.
Sure.
How did you end up at Unity?
Yeah. Well, how did I start at Unity is maybe a better way to answer that.
Okay.
So my mom, Kathy Schultz, she was one of the first ladies that started it was an impromptu group. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 ladies, and they would meet at Olive Weber's house. So I think Olive maybe started. So how this all came to be is my mom, she was born in Ireland, so raised Catholic.
Yep.
And came to Canada, immigrated, married, and had family. So I'm the youngest of 4 of us. And when she was in her 40s, she was really struggling with the Catholicism in her life. She didn't really understand. She had questions, and they were not answered to secure in her heart what Catholicism was. It just didn't sit right. Anyway, she also loved to secondhand store shop, and she loved to read. And so one day at the Goody, that's what our family called it. It embarrassed my mom because when I went to school and said, "Oh, I got this at the Goody," she would like cringeworthy. But anyway, side story to that. So at the Goodwill, she found a book, and I think it was probably by, is it Mary Baker Eddy?
Sounds about right. Yep.
I think, but I don't know 100%. But it wasn't a Unity book, but on the in the inside, it was stamped with the Unity in Missouri. So then she started communicating that book just resonated. And that was the pivotal moment in her life to realize that there is something deeper with spirituality. So she started reaching out to the Unity in Kansas City, our Unity
Okay,
headquarters.
so Unity Missouri, yeah.
In
Okay.
Missouri. And so she was getting literature from them, whether that was the Daily Word maybe at the time.
Yeah. Sounds
Probably,
possible. Yeah,
probably.
probable. Yeah.
And then one day, the lady down in Unity in Missouri reached out to my mom and she said, "Do you know there's 3 other ladies in your same town that are doing the exact same thing you are? Would you like to have their contact information?" And of course, she said, "Sure." So that's how the group of them started. And it was just like a study group talking about maybe the Daily Word. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But and then from there, just it expanded and expanded. More people came, and then they had to rent a place. And yeah.
Wow. What
So
year
that
would
would,
it?
people always ask me that. I always have to think how old I was. Maybe I was 10.
Yeah.
And I'm in my mid-50s now, so 45 years ago, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
1979,
70s,
Yeah.
in the 70s.
In the
I guess.
70s, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then she was pretty deeply involved, but on and off through the years. There was times that she kind of drifted away, and
Yeah.
so I was instilled with some of her beliefs then, because this is a funny story. So I think she was really into prosperity. And so we did a car trip, my girlfriend and I, and my mom and dad, a car trip to California. And she was into this prosperity thing. So
Yep.
we had a cassette tape.
Okay.
And I'll never forget that song because, we played it the whole way down and the whole way back. But it was like, money, 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 lots and lots of money coming to me now. Yes, it's coming to me now. And so, so that was her gig. Anyway, so, I mean, how could you not be when you're indoctrinated with that thought?
Right.
Yeah. And so she really was on that positivity bandwagon. And so what a blessing for me, because I was started in Catholicism.
Yeah.
Hated it, like
Right.
the youngest of the 4 of us. So dragged, honestly. I'll never forget the last time I remember the day I stopped going because I put up such a fuss. I must have been maybe 10, 12, I don't know. And anyways, my mom and dad just said, "Fine, don't come then." So I didn't.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. I was I felt so like I damaged, So it was like, okay, great. I don't have to. And you know what? The other thing that bothered me is the incense. It really kind of irritated me. So
Right.
the whole thing was just not a pleasant thing. The only pleasurable part was getting that little piece of bread in your mouth.
Right.
That was. But anyway, so that was kind of how I started.
Right. That's
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to me because I had to go to church, and that was fine. I didn't really like it though. I didn't get it. And then it was weird because there was a point where I really did like it, and I actually chose when I was a teenager to be an altar boy.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why.
Yeah.
And so when I think of that, it's like, oh, it's no wonder I decided to become a minister. Obviously, there was something in me even at that point that was looking or reaching for something.
Yeah.
Right. Trying to find
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
I don't know, soothe my soul or soothe my desire to find out more about how are we here or why are we here or how does it all work or does it even work at all?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's really cool. So would you say then your mom is one of like the starting founders of Unity here?
I believe so, but I know this is interesting because pre-internet, there was already Comox and Victoria, and they were 3 totally separate entities.
Right.
So I'm not sure when they started. Their timeline might be earlier even. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and I'm just
And
fascinated.
there was honestly just 3 separate. Nobody ever got together I don't think at all, at least that I'm aware of.
Well, I'm fascinated at the idea that even back then that somehow Unity reached Vancouver Island in those 3 separate places. Like, it's pretty amazing to me when I think about what how, like today, that wouldn't be surprising.
Right.
It would be so easy to find something like that through the internet. But back then, to have even, I don't know, how did that book end up here stamped with, it's crazy how things turn out.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. Now, did you always, as you aged, did you always come to Unity, or was there like a long break and then suddenly you decided, I think I want to check that out?
It was always there, kind of in my back pocket. So I understood the philosophy. That's the part that resonated. So I kind of carried that through my life. I've been to other Unities. When I lived in Mississauga, I went to the Unity there.
Yeah.
That's where Jordan was, interestingly.
Yeah.
And been to Vancouver Unity when I was going to school in Vancouver. And of course, Nanaimo. I've been.
Right. So you've
but not continually.
Right.
Like, there's
you've always kind of touched base with it, though. Like it's always kind of like you said, it's been in your back pocket.
Touch base, but peripherally, because
Right.
I've never been that person to really. And it doesn't matter what it is, deeply involve myself.
Right.
I'm the good setup person, the good takedown, but just don't
Yeah.
need to be seen or heard or.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually part of my curiosity with wanting to talk to you, because what I've noticed, and I don't mean this in any slight, but what I've noticed is that there was a time all of a sudden, it occurs to me as all of a sudden, you decided you're going to be involved.
There was a couple times that had to prompt me forward. So I think the very first time that Patricia asked me to speak, and that was so nerve-wracking, and I didn't know how to speak in front of anyone, like in public. And that was when everything was being Zoomed. So there wasn't like a huge crowd, but there was like maybe half dozen people in the room recording when we had our building.
Yeah.
But that was huge. And so that accomplishment of being able to do that, it really sparked something in me. It's like, okay. And I think your comment too, because I said, wow, that was my first time ever speaking. And you were like, really? So whether that's true or not, so it's interesting because it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I may have even just being sarcastic, like
who
every
knows?
time I've met you, you've
matter,
spoken.
Though. It doesn't matter,
Yes,
right? So
yeah.
I just took that away and it's like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And so that was a big part about me kind of getting a bit more confident.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then, and so that was before you came on the board.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think when you came on the board, I was the chair at that time.
Correct.
And so you ended up on the board, and then you actually ended up as the vice chair.
Well, I did. And so again, Patricia phoned me up. Hey, there's this spot on the board, vice president. And honestly, I sometimes joke that this is my superpower, gullible and naive.
Right.
But whatever, use it to your advantage. So she said, oh, there's a temporary, keyword temporary.
Right.
Right? So I was like, okay, had no idea what this meant. I've never been on a board before. The only time was, I think I was the treasurer for our 10-pin bowling league. But basically that was just begging people to remember to bring their check.
Yeah.
So, but that was really my only involvement with any other group that I've been attached to.
Right.
So, so I was like, okay, sure. Temporary.
Yeah.
I can do anything temporarily. Of course I can. I'm a woman, right? So, I agreed to do that. And of course, you being the chair, I mean, that was an easy slide in. And you didn't really have to do much. As the VP,
right.
You're just kind of there.
Yeah.
But you, led the show, and the others chipped in because they were already there and involved.
Right. So it was an easy.
Oh, it was easy. Easy
from your
peasy.
perspective, it was easy to just slide in and just be involved and kind of
it's
watch.
just temporary.
Right. Watch how things happen.
Yeah.
And it was
with amazement,
it was
because
temporary.
I'm like, wow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes, temporary. So that's great, temporary. So then term is coming to an end. And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, hasta la vista, babies.
Right.
Thank you. It's been a great
run.
Great run. And then, of course, the 3 units are becoming amalgamated. So then Patricia's like, we got to change the board because now we're going to incorporate people from different places. I'm like, perfect. Perfectly aligned. Just what I needed. A little sample, but
not for me.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
And then the phone call. Patricia.
Yeah. She's pretty good.
Good news. I found a way to keep you on the board. Honestly, I almost fainted. I honestly did. I was at work. I had to sit down. I had to breathe. I'm like, wow, this is not what I was planning, not what I had signed up for.
Because it was temporary.
It was temporary.
Right.
And I can do anything temporary.
Yeah.
So I really had to resonate and sit with that for a while. It wasn't an instant reaction for me to say, okay, great. I'm sharing your enthusiasm. But then it came to me. I was like, okay, if this is what's coming down my pipe, there must be something bigger for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Must be. Like, why else would this happen like this? So I embraced it.
Great.
And I was like, okay, now I'm the VP.
Mm-hmm.
What does a VP do? So I had to read the rule book,
Yeah.
the job description. What exactly are my responsibilities? And one of them was, you should be able to chair the board meeting in the absence of the chair.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I better figure that out then, because if you're not there, who's going to do it, right? This is my responsibility now.
Yeah.
So that's the day, I don't know if you remember that, when I asked you, I said, can I chair this
Yeah.
board
I do.
meeting?
I remember all of it. Like,
Yeah.
I remember so much of it, and your willingness, your willingness to just go. So I want to go back though. So,
Sure.
because this I think is, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but just see how this fits. I'm thinking, you get this call from Patricia, and she's like, "Guess what? I figured out a way to keep you on the board," and you're just like, "What the heck?" But how you just said that to me, it makes me think that you sat in the question,
Absolutely.
so to speak. Like, you didn't say yes, you didn't say no, you sat with it.
Yeah.
And allowed yourself to sit in it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this podcast earlier today. Actually, this is really perfect, because the two gentlemen were talking about this thing like, oh, I don't know, it just came to me, right? Like this idea that's how we think. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it just came to me. And there's a lot of things that are instinctual that just come to us. However, when something is facing us that is a challenge or that we don't know the answer to, that the best thing we can do is sit in the question.
Yeah.
And it's in that process of sitting in the question that something can be revealed.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it just comes out of nowhere.
I think it's already there.
It means
It's
that you're
percolating.
you're
Yeah.
allowing yourself to be sort of pulled by it or grabbed by it. And in that is the ability for you to see how you actually play a part in it.
Yeah.
Right. And which is exactly what you just said. Like,
Yeah.
you suddenly saw there must be, if this is happening, there must be something that is happening for me that I can step into.
And Patricia, in her brilliance, I'll add this. She also said to me, when she heard I didn't accept right away, she said, you don't have to accept it. And that was really empowering. And then I was like, yeah, she's right. I don't have to do this.
Right. It became a choice for
Yes.
you. And in that, okay, so
Yes.
as soon as you saw that it was now a choice,
Yeah.
it allowed some freedom.
Absolutely.
To even be with it
Yeah.
in a way that, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
And that was probably the thing that allowed you to turn it into
Yeah.
why is this showing up for me, and what am I here to learn from it?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you say yes to this.
Yeah.
And then
It's still temporary though.
Yes,
'Cause
it's still-
I know this too will end.
it's always a temporary.
Right.
It was always temporary.
But I'm more engaged now because I've signed up for it.
Right. So then you say yes to that, and was I on for another year?
Think so.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then from that point, then you stepped into
Your term ended.
Yeah.
And still naive, gullible. I didn't realize that usually the VPs slide into the. I didn't know that.
It wasn't obvious to you?
No.
Wasn't
No.
obvious that you were being set up?
No. But in hindsight, right, I can see the grooming. But no, in the moment I didn't. And then I think it was just maybe some little innuendos. And I was like, And then it was labeled, usually. And I'm like, oh my gosh, flip. here I go. Wasn't ready for that at all. So
Well, you were. You just didn't think you were.
no, didn't think I was. So again, I had to just scale back and it's like, okay, I guess if this is being introduced to me, then this is my calling and I will go forth the best I can. And yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was interesting though.
So,
Not a leader by
and yet
my
you've,
natural.
and yet you've shown up
Maybe.
as one.
Yeah. So it's interesting how, evolution, I guess.
Well, there's so many different types of leaders.
Yeah.
You've just shown up the way you show up
Yeah.
as a leader. And that's been, that's served people.
Well, and my mom and dad were both leaders. So I often think, not in the moment, when you're a kid, you don't realize that, but they spearheaded so many things in this community. And they never had training. They didn't have any schooling, but they had a desire.
Right.
And that's what spurred them on. So,
Right. So now that I don't know, when do you know when your temporary
so this
term
is another
ends?
interesting thing.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be this year,
Yeah.
but Patricia,
Yeah.
good news.
I've got some more exciting news for you, Brenda.
So anyways, I don't know. You don't get voted in as the president in a board at a AGM, but
Yeah, the board votes.
the board votes
that
in
Yeah.
the person. But
Yeah.
there is a temporary, because my term would be up this
Right.
year, and but I think there's a temporary spot that
On the board.
I on the board.
Oh, so because somebody's leaving the board that
Correct.
still has a
Prematurely.
term, has a term that's still in action. So
Correct.
you're going to slide over, or potentially, potentially you may temporarily slide over to that spot,
Correct.
and complete that term for somebody.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you'll be president.
No.
It just means that you'll still sit on the board if you choose to do
If
that.
I choose to do
and then
that.
you might get voted in as president, and then you might accept it.
Correct.
Right, because you'd have to accept.
Never assume.
Yes, okay.
Right.
But you still have to say yes to that. Even if the board wants you, you have the option to say yes or
Absolutely.
no.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the big question from me. Knowing what you know now, seeing what has transformed inside of you or transcended inside of you, this whole experience of being on a board, thinking, I've never been on a board. Am I even qualified? What have you taken away? What would you say you've learned, your experience? I guess what I'm trying to get at is sell this to me. Why would anybody want to do this?
Well, why wouldn't you? It's just been a fabulous experience being surrounded with so many people. I guess you could say like-minded, but we're not all like-minded, but just brilliant ideas and sharing. It's been just a fantastic. Now, I mean, you can be just a congregant and have that same experience, but
Can you?
I don't know. Maybe. Why not? I don't know.
Well, I think you can be a congregant and have an experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think taking ownership is the key.
Yeah.
And so are you a congregant that takes ownership? So are you a participant that takes ownership of it?
Well, you know what's fun about being on the board is you can share your ideas. So if you have inspirations, you can bring them forward and maybe make them into fruition.
Right.
Was
it as hard as you thought it would be? If you had a thought
yes
that
and
it would,
no. Like
okay.
I still struggle sometimes with board space, or launching. It's always kind of last minute for me to get my stuff together to chair the meetings, and
Right.
I don't really enjoy that part so much.
Right. So I know what you mean. It
Yeah.
always feels like I'm
And you're
kind of hanging on.
You're disengaged a bit from the meeting because you're too conscious about leading it, and
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So
So president aside,
Yeah.
when you were vice president,
Yeah.
what did would that have been the same experience, or would you have had were board meetings easier to participate in because you didn't have to you weren't responsible to carry the flow?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because I do know what you mean. As the chair, you're kind of like everybody's looking to you for the next move,
right? To
make a decision. Are we going to vote now?
Yeah.
All of those things you kind of have to have check marked.
So I still struggle with that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then technology can be a bit of a challenge at times.
Yeah.
Right. But has it been worth it?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And in what way personally? So let's look at this from a place of personal development. What has that experience been like for you? Like what do you think you've gotten, you're taking away from it as a personal experience?
I think there's layers to that question, but I know I had taken a few years away from Unity in Nanaimo, and for no reason, for just life is busy and kids and work and stuff. And but I had to take time off work because I was really struggling. Same thing, I can't really pinpoint what that struggle was about. Now, reflecting, I think maybe that was, how sometimes in your life you have taps, pay attention, get poked a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think I probably was being poked, but I didn't pay attention. And so that's when I kind of had a bit of a breakdown, and it's like had to take time off work. And then I called that period of my life my rebuild. And so taking time off work, spending lots of time in nature, walking, reflecting. And then the period at the end of now I'm feeling stronger, better. And it was Mother's Day, and I was sitting at home, and I was like, you know what? I should go to Unity. And just kind of, because my mom had passed away and for many years, and I just thought, it'd be respectful just to kind of do this for my mom. So I think I walked down, because I live close enough to do that, and I entered the building, and it was like, Brenda, wow, Brenda's here. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people knew me. And they're like, hey, anyway, so Patricia gave her talk, and I sat there, and I was just like, wow. And I realized for my rebuild, this was what was missing. I had taken care of my body well.
Right.
And my mind, but had kind of neglected my spirit.
Right.
And that was it. It was like, wow, that was the period at the end of my rebuild session. So I don't know how many years ago. I'm not very good with keeping gauge on how, maybe 6
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because Patricia's been here, I've been here since 2017, so that's 7 years, and she was here before then. And if I wasn't here when you came,
I don't know if you were or not.
Yeah, then
I don't
could
know,
be
but
8 or
maybe
9.
that similar timeline.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that really, just the whole message and that fellowship, it was just, that resonated deeply in my soul and my body. So, so then I started to come.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so even that welcoming piece where you were welcomed by people, and it felt like home in a way, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, it was neat.
So when it comes to leadership, would you say you have a particular style? You ever thought of this?
No, not really.
No?
Maybe just by demonstrative style. Is that a style of leadership?
I don't know. What do you mean by that?
Just being that person. I'm not really preachy or anything. I just kind of be the person I am and give my message that way. And I sure appreciate listening more than speaking, because people have a lot to add.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes good leadership, actually.
Not to be responsive, right? Because everybody has a story, everybody has a take on stuff, and soak it all in.
Yeah,
doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, are you going to continue
with what?
With the board?
This or no?
With the board?
Probably.
Probably. Okay, so. Good to know. So in looking at that now, we've got some big changes here at Unity.
Yeah.
We've got some, we're going to be moving, we're going to be in a new place. When you think of Unity and moving forward, what do you see? Like what would excite you about what we're doing here or what we could do here?
I think it's just going to be glorious to have a bigger physical space. Yeah. Yeah, because we've been cramped sardine-like for a few years now. So, yeah, I think that'll be, and maybe just reaching out and being not afraid to invite people because there's now a chair for you to sit in, you know, instead of thinking like you're kind of guarded, like, well, you could come. But I mean, the last couple times have been full people. Like we have to kind of squeeze in and stand at the back sort of thing. So, yeah.
Which is a good challenge to have.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And then what do you see for us in terms of, like in the community? Like how would you, and I know I'm throwing you on the spot here because I didn't prep you for any of this.
It's okay.
I'm just winging it like you are. Your answers, you're winging it. I'm kind of winging what I want to ask you. But when you think of what we could do in the community, you know, what does that look like?
Well, I've always thought, like we are the best kept secret. Like nobody really understands. I know, you know, sometimes we've been thought of as a cult, and I know, you know, some of my peripheral family members have said, like, what is it that you're going to? Even though my mom was involved, but I don't know. They're just kind of scared, I guess. People are still kind of reluctant because they don't know what's going on here. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it'd
be nice to kind of display.
Yeah, but I think that's the onus is on us.
Yeah.
To come up with a very simple explanation of what unity is.
Yes.
And I don't know. Like I struggle.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I talk to every week on Friday mornings, and he's in Massachusetts, and he's older than me, and he doesn't know anything about unity. And we'll end up talking about these ideas around faith and religion and what's not religion and, you know, philosophical concepts and things. And he'll ask me questions about unity. And, you know, I give these answers sometimes. And he's like, well, if that's your answer, you're in trouble, buddy.
Right.
Because I don't understand what you just said. Like, you need to simplify that.
Yeah, simplify it. Yeah.
And so I know what, like, for me, I constantly am thinking, how do I, you know, okay, we're part of the New Thought movement.
What does that mean?
What does that mean,
Yeah.
right? Like if you don't know what that is, if
Yeah.
you've never had any exposure to it, it becomes challenging. So anybody out there, if you've got like the elevator speech all lined up for what unity is, put it in the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just let us know what you think unity is. Take a moment to just da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Here's what you say that works or what you think it should be. You know, how we should answer that question.
It's a great idea. See, that's how you, engage people, and
hopefully
there's some.
Hopefully, we'll get some feedback on that. Yeah,
they will.
Yeah, they will. I love your faith. They will. That's that affirmative prayer money song coming out, isn't it? Yeah. How many times did you listen to that song?
Oh, forever. Yeah. I know that. Like, obviously, I still have it ingrained in my head, right? So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have nothing else. I'm pleased.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Anything you want to say? Anything you feel like you need to say or want to say in terms of your involvement with Unity or?
No, I just feel blessed that this has come upon me, and it's interesting how my life, everything always works out. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Well, I'll finish with, I think you've been fantastic in the role. I think you've done a great job.
Oh, well, thank you.
I admire very much because I know, you know, you've shared with me along the way, like back when I was the chair, and your hesitation and your, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Your willingness to not know what you're doing,
yes.
but step into it anyway.
Yes. And everybody is helpful, right? You know, you're never really alone.
No. Like
never feel like you're... Like even at the board meeting when I'm trying to think, what is the right terms? Do I accept it? What do I do here? And somebody always chips in and it's like, yes, okay.
Yeah.
You would think I would know that by now, but sometimes
well, I think that's something maybe we can explain is that like the thing I also found, because I've been on many boards outside of Unity and where it's a lot more, you know, it's not as easy going.
Okay. Yeah.
as our board can be, right? Our board meetings are pretty easygoing. Nobody's going to get too wired up about something or too upset, but we didn't do that motion exactly the proper way. Okay, well then let's do it the proper way. And everybody chips in to do it the proper way. So if anybody's considering doing something like that with Unity, it's not, there's no gavel coming down with people getting angry and this is the way it needs to go. It's a pretty lax, we get work done, the business gets taken care of, we move forward, and it's pretty casual in terms of how, we follow the Robert's Rules of Order, but not to the point where somebody has a book out.
Right, yeah.
Right. And so that's helpful. But just getting back to your choices and your willingness to show up, for me, it's an example of how to live. And I can remember, for myself at times when I'm thinking I maybe don't want to do this, actually you pop into my head once in a while as an example of, you know what, like, what am I, even this stuff with your Weight Watchers. That
Looking svelte, I know.
No, with your, what is it?
Toastmasters. Yes.
Thank you. With your Toastmasters. So was that inspired partly by being on the board? Did you see that as like?
I guess I've always seen people that speak well. Maybe I don't know. Should I speak for everyone? I think we all, when you see somebody speaking well, it's like, wow, that's so cool. I'll never be that person, but that's cool. Right? And so I always had that seed, I guess, that I would, maybe I'll say I would love to be a person that could speak well in front of people.
Right. Well, you can speak well. It's the in front of people that is the piece, right?
Yes.
The getting up and being okay with a group of people and just sharing what you need to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started doing Toastmasters a few months ago, and it was Margaret Tiverman that...
Yeah. Tiverman?
Yeah. She introduced me to coming to the Nanaimo group.
Right.
And she's a Toastmaster for many, many years. So anyways, I kind of, same thing, kind of had that on the back burner. But then one day I was like, maybe I should check out where the Nanaimo group is. And so it was at the Harbourfront Library. So I thought, I'm going to go. So I just went and I was like, wow. And then I stood up because they always ask visitors to come and share their thoughts, how the meeting went. And I was like, you are my people. Like, I want, when you see something and it's like, I want what you got. I want that. And it was just like, wow. And just, so I've joined that group. And,
right. That's funny. That's what it was for me to decide to do ministerial work was Patricia.
Right.
Whatever. I saw something about her that I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that in my life.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the road I need to take to have that peace.
Yes.
That calmness. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah. Brenda Hanus, the current chair.
Yes. It's funny. I like that word chair more than president, but I'm okay with both. It's
Well, you're the pres and you're the chair. And Unity Vancouver Island is grateful to have had the service you have provided.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks everybody for joining in.
Yeah.